What happens when a life's work goes up in flames? You rebuild with purpose. Chef Christopher and Martina Kostow have built more than restaurants. They built a life rooted in a shared vision and partnership. When the Glass Fire claimed their 3 Michelin-starred restaurant, Meadowwood, they chose to rebuild in new ways. Since then, they've created the Charter Oak and Lovesky Deli. Each project reflects their passion for food and their connection to Napa's land and people. Chef Christopher and Martina's story, like their food, continues to evolve and reach for something greater.
We are here in St. Helena with Christopher and Martina Kostow at the Charter Oak, and we're really excited to have a great conversation. Thank you, guys. Well, we're going to bounce around a bit, but to start with you, Christopher, what makes a great chef?
I think what makes a great chef is someone who has found their specific point of view and has the relentlessness to pursue that point of view, irrespective of the challenges that the industry or the day or culture or whatever maybe having that time may throw at you. I think that's sort of the starting point. There can be really good cooks who are good technicians who you can give a chicken to and they eat great roasted chicken. There's a lot of good cooks. And there are great chefs who are maybe not great cooks, so there's lots of great cooks who are definitely not great chefs. But I think a great chef is someone who has discovered or created a very specific lens by which they see the world through food, and they have the wherewithal, the desire, the temerity, the stupidity to see it through.
Temerity is one of my absolute favorite words. And I'll put you on the spot and ask you, what is your shared point of view, given that you both are in this business together?
I would say our shared point of view is hard work, dedication, passion. I think we always see that we're not done yet, that there's always something else that we want to be accomplishing. And I think we've seen that together as a couple and then in our work. So just in general, our life works that way. We're just moving very quickly. We're always like, what's next? What can we do? How can we be better? How can we lift up the team? How can they improve? How can we evolve as a couple and as individuals? And so I think that's why we've been so successful, is because we have each other to push each other and support each other.
Because you're not lacking for projects.
Yeah.
And is that who pushes who's in this sort of business relationship? Who's the constraint and who's the?
I don't think. See, that's a problem.
It's not. Or you go either of you.
I was thinking they take that role at different times. I'd say
there's no trust-raising exercise in any course. I think you both. I think we're enamored. I think we tend to be enamored with ideas and possibilities.
Yes.
And I rarely. I think the older we get, the more we take into account the price of those opportunities from a time perspective, from a physical toll, etc.
Quality of life,
cost on relationships, how it can impact quality of life. But I think we were both consistently intrigued and excited by the prospect of new projects, whatever that is, be it a restaurant, collabo, brand partnership, whatever that is. I think we might be better served if one of us was a little more constraint minded, but I think we're both very growth oriented for whatever reason.
We like the process of going through, looking at all these different opportunities and what things are going to make the most sense. I think it's the creative process, but also just like the idea of like, what do we like about this? What maybe doesn't fit? And then it makes more sense when we do move forward with something because all the pieces come together.
I think the funny thing about like restaurants is that I think that in a more perfect world, like I would rather be a poet where you write a poem and then it's done. The idea that sits behind a restaurant is the funnest part. Okay. But once that restaurant is brought into life and birth, then it's like having a child where you then have 20 years where you have to maintain and fix and tweak it, ensure the survival of that thing. I think that's where our life, that's the challenge of our career, is that it is easier to birth something than it is to raise it. And I think restaurants in this climate, in this time, in this place are hard to keep alive.
To maintain. Yeah.
I've often thought about restaurants in a similar career arc to other artistic fields, where you think about an athlete who you think of the greats have 18-year period. Reality is most athletes have kind of a 6, 5, 6, right, in that sort of interim period. Even you think about great acts or great bands, usually it's like 1 or 2 records kind of at that peak, right? For some reason, since it's, I think they're making a food, we just sort of assume, oh, you can just kind of keep doing it and it will just last for decades. But reality, creating something that lasts for more than a peak window, I think seems really challenging.
It's hard to not become that chef or that restaurateur. I always divide it into it's chefs, restaurateurs contribute to the industry writ large in terms of the content they produce, and those that expropriate and copy it, just sort of monetize the work of others. I think we've been very conscious to always make sure we're creating something. It's very easy to not, especially in a place like the Valley where maybe culinary innovation, or lack of culinary innovation may be less recognized than elsewhere. So it's easier to rest on one's laurels and beg, borrow, steal from other people's stuff. But I think we're always dead set for creating these things.
Charter Oak, core identity.
Charter Oak is really based on a celebratory dining experience. Food we grow, food we grill, food we serve in a family style sense. Very convivial, but very elemental in approach.
Lovski's.
Lovski Deli is a quick service, sort of small footprint Jewish deli with a more modern, lighter, more California lens. That is meant really to broaden the audience of the traditional Jewish deli while still honoring the roots of the thing. Chicho is a blessing. Chicho is a restaurant we were able to take over and helped resurrect with the Altamura family. A restaurant that was our favorite restaurant in the Valley, really. And now we get to ensure that it survives for a long time. Cute, quixotic, delicious food, very high energy, very good music. Simple Italian. Yeah.
Meadowwood.
The restaurant in Meadowwood is the most acute distillation of all the things that matter from a food perspective. For me as a chef, I think maybe for us as an organization, it is ambition without bounds. It is something we look forward to returning to hopefully sooner rather than later.
Tell me about the inspiration for where we are right now, Charter of Restaurant.
I think that with all the restaurants, with any project we look at, the physical space, the building will drive its identity. I don't think we start with a concept and then try to necessarily plug it in somewhere. That's the fun, I think, artistic part of it. And this building was for a long time a very famous restaurant that I frequented. I visited as a young person. It was one of the first cookbooks I ever bought was the cookbook of Trevino, which is a restaurant that operated here from 86 to 2016, which is a really wow run. This was at a time in the Valley where there weren't a lot of restaurants. But this was sort of the North Star for its first 50 years or so, 10 years or so. But the building, owing to its size and degree of drama, I think for us, called forth a need to do something that was very celebratory, and a need to do a style of food that could be broad in people's ability to understand it, be at specific enough a point of view that it was worth being in this space. So a place this large with this many seats, indoor, outdoor, event spaces, all these sorts of things, you have to cast a bit of a wide net. And we couldn't do a hyper authentic Southern Thai or, Jerusalem specific restaurant. That's not good.
It's not a shack shoot spot.
Yeah. It's got to be something where the jumping off point was sort of universally understood. So the thinking was, coming from a very high-end restaurant like the restaurant in Meadowwood, instead of pulling back pieces of fine dining and calling it casual, you wanted to start over and create something that was as elemental and simple as possible. Therefore, when you're doing a dish, hyper simple, using products that we grow, which is most often the case, the simplicity at the degree of editing can be well understood by someone who understands food. But if they don't understand food, they understand it because it's simple. Yeah. So that was a very calculated sort of way of doing this restaurant. You can have a dish we're putting on the menu now might be pole bees that's going on today. Pole beans that we grow, we basket grill over the fire, we dress it with a garum, with the soy sauce that we make with ham, and that's it. So if you know food, you're like, wow, those beans are unbelievable. That ham garum, super clever, makes sense. Beans and ham. And if you don't know anything, your grandmother's gonna come and she's like, I like these. So there's universality to the thing, I guess is.
And also from a design aspect, I think we also did the same thing with strip away sort of artifice. The natural brick you see here was underneath paint. We had one gentleman come in and he basically took away all of what was it? Like a sandblasted first. I'll bring it back to the original.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
It's a real discovery too to understand. Yeah. So did you have all this greenery the entire time?
No, this was all painted like a sort of terracotta pink. On all the exterior walls, and the inside it was all plaster. So there's no brick on the inside either.
So yeah, and now it's just stripped away, and then same thing with simplicity at the tables and having a center focal point of the hearth and the grill when you walk in. That was all intentional, and I think really highlights the food and the culinary perspective for the space.
The idea of being like ingredient focused, but just not from a point of view to kind of live in those two worlds. To your point, like this is good. But I can appreciate it without any entree into the culinary arts. Like I just know this is good, but then it has levels to it, right?
Yes.
What's been recently? Talking about like something that was really hard, like 5 years, 10 years, like a really hard journey as we were building something.
One specific thing.
Yeah.
I would say the Charter Oak has had its challenges. I think it's been a hard journey with this restaurant specifically. We opened in 2017. I think when it finally got its stride, unfortunately we had a global pandemic and fires and things that really sort of affected how you operate a business and trying to have to pivot constantly, frequently, every day or week or month for a long period of time. So I think, for us, like the last, 5 years, there's been sort of these ups and downs. I think that specifically here in the Napa Valley and a lot of places, I think being able to operate a restaurant, but not having sort of consistency in terms of your seasonality, in terms of how you plan for staffing budgets, all of those things have become more difficult because the world around us is sort of up and down. We're going to have corporate business come back. There going to be people wanting, less people drinking and more people drinking. All of these different trends have sort of shifted in terms of the restaurant industry. So I think every year looks a little bit different. So maybe Charter Oak I use as the example, but I think in all of the businesses we operate, we really have to be vigilant every single day almost, and sort of watching what it's going to look like for the week to come, for the month to come, versus looking a year out and knowing, trends, this is what it is, and this is the consistency. And to this point earlier about maintaining a restaurant, I think, those challenges make it a little difficult to step away from any project and hyper focus on a new project, because you want to make sure these things are successful and maintain their success.
Yeah, I think that last point is really important in that, historically it's has been easier to get a project going, but the right people in place. Manage it, of course, never stop managing it. But you're able to turn your head a little bit and maybe do something different or even augment the original concept. I think over the last several years, there's been so many challenges beyond our control that makes it very hard to use. Yeah, I think sort of the hardest moment of our journey is probably 2020, where we, in addition to being in the middle of a pandemic, our sort of flagship restaurant that really informed all of our other projects burns down, which is there's sort of a loss of our restaurant, but more to the point, there's a loss of this thing that's sort of tethered up together. So it's been a big, I think really, the 3 years after that very triage, it was coupled luckily with a tremendous amount of business. The Valley was incredibly busy, 22, 23, 24 really went down. 25 this year, everything's kind of going back up. But to Martina's point, every year is fundamentally comes. And therefore, there is no set it, forget it to any degree, which makes growth more challenging, which makes retention and keep people more challenging, which makes the ability to deliver quality consistently much, much more challenging.
And for someone who lives in Napa, the story of Meadowwood is well known in my heart, and it's talked about all the time. But could you actually just walk through what happened, the fire, and the building, the restaurant, the fire, and then how it's been post that, and kind of how you go from that? If you wouldn't mind just setting in place what Meadowwood was and what you accomplished, and then what happened. Very simply.
So the restaurant, we arrived at the restaurant Meadowwood in 2008. We had, I think, a good deal of success there. We achieved a 3rd Michelin star there in 2011. 2011. We retained that until 2020. The restaurant burned down. More importantly,
Until 2021 when the restaurant burned down. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
so sort of more importantly, I think we developed a style of cooking there that was very grounded in the valley, in the agriculture that we were pursuing, in utilizing all the local artists. We had certain tenets that we followed there that was very specific and very deliberate, that was developed over a long period of time. So COVID hits, we shut down like everyone else. We were actually pretty proactive at shutting down. We really thought we were doing the right thing. I was trying to rally other chefs and restaurants to shut down prior to being mandated, so I really thought foolishly in retrospect. If we shut down quickly, be open as quickly and off the show.
Put down. No.
I remember I'd be on the phone with Chef Keller being like, we should just shut down now. It's like, we do this, we'll be back open in 2 months or something.
Yeah, we did have an 8 weeks, sort of 6 to 8 weeks. This is going to be past us.
So anyways, you go through all that, we get back open, we're operating outside, we shut down, operating outside, and finally we were allowed to operate back in the restaurant. So we've been doing so like maybe 4 days, and it was the Saturday of the first week. Yeah, we were operating inside. It was the first Saturday, back inside. Every VIP was there. It was, Chef Keller was there, media was there. There was a lot of people in the room. And we did a certain VIP menu. There's a famous chef who passed away that day from France, Trois Gros. We did a dish in his honor for Keller. So we did all this crazy stuff. Wow. And it was the best service we ever had. And I went home and I said to Martina, I don't know what it is about that restaurant, but it is endlessly engaging. We've been doing this for 12 years at that point, and it is endlessly engaging. I mean, it was such an engaging service. And there was a point watching the souffle course that we had never done before be executed at this table. It was just this it was perfect. And we're like high-fiving each other in the service. It was like that intense. And then go home, tell Martina how engaging it was. We fall asleep, and then we start getting reports that, hey, there's fires. We dealt with our share of fires. We drove. This was a Sunday, so the restaurant Meadow was closed. I drove to Charter Oak to just check on things, saw the fire in the last mile. Didn't think much of it, to be honest with you. We'd see our share of fires. We actually opened the restaurant here. I went home, we grabbed the girls, we found a vantage point on Dunawheel up in Calistoga, near where we live, and watched them fight the fire. Seemed fine. Go home, get evacuated. Long story short, the next morning is raining. It's like hell on earth. And
we moved to a hotel in St. Helena thinking we'll be back home tomorrow. We can just pack the kids' clothes. They can go to school in town. We just tried to move everyone to the closest spot. And Meadowwood told us, we put you up here, but we're being told we might have to evacuate the property, which we were all just like, oh, it's going to pass. Like, there was definitely not a sense of what was going to happen.
So we drive down to Marin, where my folks live, and we start having calls, start hearing things are burning, etc. And the word was that the building where the restaurant was had been saved. It was fine. But what had happened, I guess, was that the water towers blew from the heat. So they were fighting the fire. They had it out, and then no water. That was anyway. So we were shown a picture by someone who worked with us at the time, because I was like, hey guys, let's not. There's a lot of conjecture. Let's not. Let's wait for reality. And they sent the pictures where the flames are shooting out of the building. Like, okay, and we don't come back.
Someone posted on Instagram.
And they don't come back. Yeah. And that was it. So again, it's important to say that a lot of people lost much more. I mean, you're in the middle of a global pandemic. Things are burning. Like, the loss of a restaurant is not pales in comparison in importance to a lot of people. So I think it's important to say. But for operations for our team, for the work we do, that was a fairly significant challenge that had to be
identities and your career, and definitely that's where you built your culinary philosophy and sort of how you view food even to this day and everything that we do. So I think, the impact, and we our wedding photos there's just so much of our history that are wrapped up into this place, and I think it's definitely was a big loss for us.
And because you both have such a distinct point of view in everything you do, when you think about rebuilding something that was so great, are you aspiring to get back to what you had before? Are you aspiring to bring something new to that experience? And how do you think about the new experience of eating at Meadowwood, given what happened? Is that changed the way that it went the restaurant?
I think the experience may be less than just getting older and a little wiser, a little more circumspect, and maybe understanding things more from the perspective of guests than the perspective of the chef. And we were very dogmatic in how we did things, for better or worse. It was, we would not post food on Instagram. We will not give you a menu. We weren't like being at the table. It was intended to be immersive and full of surprise. And I think that a lot of those things, when we do it again, I think we're looking at it more from a bit of ease of a guest experience. The whole means communication at restaurants has changed.
Yeah, I think the industry's changed, and sort of have to. It could never be what
we'd be ridiculous to just open the same.
It would never be what it was before, nor do I think you should want it to be.
Yeah, actually, I think that's actually really interesting. This is a observer, not someone who's in the thick of it. How has the industry changed? I mean, it's 5 years, right? So what has changed since that? What do you have to react to now?
There's been this flattening of food criticism where there's as much attention paid and credence given to an influencer who may not know anything about food at all, or who comes at it from a lens of style or popularity or something else, as a food critic of the New York Times of a product we're doing our vacation. And I don't think that's inherently bad. I think there's been a democratization of opinion on food and kind of all things. But there is, I think, a need in a 3-star space, just as the case may be with an opera or a Broadway show or a great piece of literature. There needs to be some degree of expert brought to bear on it.
Yes.
And I don't think there's objective reality to the expert's opinion, but someone who has spent their lifetime reading poetry, I like to hear what they have to say about a book of poems more than someone who is judging the book of poetry on the color of the cup.
You're right. I mean, in all aspects of life, we're sort of challenging the premise of expertise, right? It's a cultural moment we're in.
We're almost against the end.
And we're almost kind of, and it's funny you say it, I hadn't translated that into food, but I think you're absolutely right. It's the same overlay of, is this really what we should be trusting? Are these institutions really the ones that are the standard bearers of what quality is?
You're talking about it, Jared. Yeah, I was going to say, it's like it is a bit
It's a moving target.
a generation, social media, the immediacy of everything, and the lack of understanding of how important it is to master things, to get really good at something. And I think, you see that in work ethic now and I think that's something that we want to instill in our kids is, you work hard at something, you continue to get better at it, you have dedication, and
if you're going to do it, do it.
Yes.
And look, you both mentioned something related to kitchen culture, and there's something special to it, right? In restaurant culture. I grew up working in restaurants, and I scrubbed pots, and then I was a busboy, and then I eventually did stuff in the actual kitchen on the line. Even that process and observing the energy, and it was a seafood restaurant in Maine. Yeah. That's where I grew up. It was really special. It was really shitty, to be clear. It was terrible. It was 80-hour work weeks.
Terrible.
And people weren't happy with each other, but an incredible camaraderie and a sense of trajectory that I think actually is really comforting in some ways.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
In restaurants, in some ways predicated on people who are willing to embrace the suck, and that's a cultural thing where, and again, I don't want to sound like an old curmudgeon, but one may argue that there's a willingness to go through tough stuff than maybe there was before. when we relaunch the restaurant in Meadowwood, it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be incumbent upon me as a chef and the team to build a very specific culture. Doing good food, not only is it not enough on the critical space, but it's also not enough to attract and retain good people. So you need to really be successful at communicating to the outside world about what you're doing, but maybe more to the point, creating meaning in everything that you're doing within the kitchen so people understand. And that was happening even before COVID. I mean, I remember we had this conversation all the time amongst the management team. The younger generation requires, and maybe it's wise of them to require more context and the why.
Yep.
Telling someone just because I said so that's not how one need manage. So I think that's interesting.
But it also, you make a great point that building a restaurant is building a company. It's the same tenets of leadership that apply to building anything.
You have to tell the why, but you also have to lead by example. You can't just say, here's our mission, do these things. You also have to be present and have them see you act in the way that you expect to have them perform as well.
I don't know that I'm good at that part of it, but yeah, she's better.
That's right.
That's
That's why. Actually, can you actually let's focus on that. So what you just said, something that you're good at and you're not. Tell me about that. What is it?
There's a lot of stuff. How much time you got?
A lot of time.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I'd love to hear from him. What he.
Yeah. Well, actually, each person talk about the spikes. I like that.
We're a very good balance of each other. Obviously, we talked about this earlier, and we both don't like to say no to anything, or we get very excited very quickly about a lot of things. I think, keeps us motivated in the work that we do. But I do think we're able to divide and conquer in a lot of ways. I think that we do both motivate the team in different ways. We both have a different approach, but I think that depending on what the situation is or what we're focused on in that moment, it will come from one or the other of us based on how we need to approach that problem.
Yeah. I mean, I think I've yet to become the kind of leader I want to be, because I feel as though there's been so much triage that I'm constantly focused on fixing the problems at hand. And I think that's a big goal for me personally, is like getting to a place of scale and therefore stability in terms of people in the right positions doing the right things, that I and we can operate a little bit more in a pure leadership capacity.
Yep.
I mean, right now we're doing all the stuff.
Yep.
All the stuff. And we're doing a lot of stuff across multiple different concepts. And it doesn't lend itself to being, I think, in my opinion, the best leader that I can be.
Tell me about how you grew up and how you got from there to here.
How I grew up. Well, I grew up in a suburb outside of Portland, Oregon. Pacific Northwest, through and through. My mom is first-generation immigrant from Thailand. My father in the Vietnam War. He was in the Air Force. And it's really, they're still married to this day, completely in love. I think for me, I listed them as like the example of like what love should be, a true partnership. A bit emotional. Hey, I really did not expect. Sorry.
Pick it up for you?
There's no sorries. That's incredible.
Martina's mother is the most selfless person you've ever met, right?
Oh.
So we were discussing earlier about, does Martina practice the Buddhism, which is the religion of her mother? No, but there's this incredible current that runs through both of them that is like very hard to describe. Her father's a goofy white guy who walked around Thailand with like a yo-yo, like just a weird guy. But her mother is an incredibly lovely and very selfless woman to this day. It's an incredible thing to emulate.
Oh, no, don't be sorry. No. Christopher, tell me about your mom.
Maybe no tears here.
You can pass that around.
I grew up outside Chicago. My father's first generation. He was more or less a refugee from World War II. Came here, was very young, did well for himself. Met my mother. They lived, kind of in Chicago. I grew up in Highland Park, which is a northern suburb of Chicago. you know, there was sort of a mantra, I guess, growing up was, as I said, if you're going to do something, do it well, you know? I think my mother was a great advocate for me and whatever struggles I had, which were numerous. I see that with Martina and our daughters now, especially our older one, where she's just an incredible advocate for her. But I learned a lot from my father as well. There's a certain degree of focus and class, and I don't mean class in terms of strata of class, but class in terms of dignity and acting a gentleman and doing the right things and being articulate and being above the fray. So I think I was raised. I was lucky to be raised by whom I was raised and where I was raised. I have two brothers who now live in the Bay Area as well. We all live out here. My parents live out here, so we're very fortunate. I think I was raised with a good degree of, actually a great degree of fortune.
And you mentioned some struggle, because it's easy to look at what both you have right now, which is, I would characterize as wild success. I know you probably still feel like you're very much in the middle of it.
You have no fucking idea.
Every day.
But talk a little about the struggle and what you referenced there, and a little bit of maybe the builder journey, because at what point, actually, let me just stop there. Talk about the struggle. Yeah.
No, I mean, I think everybody has. I think youth is inherently traumatic. You know, I think as parents nowadays, I think we're more reflective on that. I think we do a better job of sort of understanding the impact of who we are as parents and the impact of the world writ large. But I think we all have challenges. So I didn't mean to imply that I had any great challenges other than, you know, the limitations that whatever limitations we all have.
Sure.
You know.
When did you get the first Michelin star at Meadowwood?
Well, I was working in San Francisco. There's a lot of travel back and forth. But anyways, I was working in San Francisco as a sous chef to a guy named Daniel Hum, who's now a very famous chef at 11 Madison Park. When he went to New York, instead of going with him to New York, I moved down to Mountain View and took over as chef. My first chef job, a place called Chez TJ, which is this old little Victorian house, really random, in Mountain View. You know, fake Tiffany lamps and creaky floors and a tiny kitchen and weird stuff. And it was the first year the Michelin Guide came out. It was my first year there. We got a star, which was like, wow, really big deal.
At Chez TJ.
Chez TJ. And then the second year I was there was the second year in the Michelin Guide. We got a second star, which was like really kind of unheard of. So we were very fortunate. It was just, at the time, it was 1 3-star, was French Laundry, and 2 2-stars, which was Manresa and Chez TJ. Everyone's like, what the fuck is Chez TJ?
What year was this?
2006 was the first star. 2007 was the second star. I moved to Meadowwood in 2008 and got 2 stars, I think, out of the gate, yeah. And then it took us 2 more years to get the 3rd star. So, yeah.
And when did you know you wanted to be chef?
You know, I was always on the fence, even as I was going through the stuff. You know, I worked in France for a long time. I worked for very hard people. None of it fun. No, I mean, from a work experience, I don't think none of it was fun.
Type 2 fun.
Yeah, type 2. I was always like, is this for me? Is this for me? I mean, I still do that to this day, where I'm like, I think I'm done. I don't think I should be a chef. I don't think I should be a chef. I'm almost 50 years old. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I'm still like, I don't think this is the right job for me. But I think I'm taped to the pedals now.
I think yes, he might look at that as like a flaw, but I think that's also why he's been so successful as a chef, because he's constantly pushing himself. He's overly critical of himself, but I think in a way that sort of even internally motivate himself.
Yeah.
To fix the problem, to keep pushing forward, do it better.
I will push so hard until the point where I'm like, I'm done. I'm quitting. I'm not going to be a chef anymore. And then it takes like 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, I go back to the beginning, and I'll keep pushing, which is, I think the definition of psychotic. I think.
I was gonna, not psychotic. This is my eldest child. It's like the clear like ADHD feeling of like I can't do it, and then knowing like you actually can, pushing yourself through it and then forward. And he does that every single day.
Yeah.
Tell me about the farm.
So the farm we run with our partners at Meadowwood. We began it right when we started at Meadowwood. There was a small farm we were using at the Nap Valley Reserve, more of a sort of ornamental farm, very lovely. but we needed more land. And at that time, the Montessori school here in St. Helena approached me and asked if we wanted to grow on their land. At the time, there was no school. There was nothing built. It was just a massive parcel of land in St. Helena. And their intent was, as they were going to begin building the school, they wanted a professional agricultural sort of entity because ag was a big part of the curriculum in the school. And to this day, the kids are out on the farm. So we, the early farm, we dug the trenches, we watered by hose, we put in the fence posts. It was very bare bones. It has grown in the past
Since 2000.
15 years plus, 15 years, to a really significant operation that encompasses our farm at Montessori, where our kids now go to school, to another farm in Oakville, to one in Con Valley. We have a series of large parcels of land that provides all the product for here, and it provided, most importantly, all the product for the restaurant in Meadowwood.
Wow.
When the restaurant burned down, it was imperative that we keep the farm alive so that it exists when we reopen Meadowwood, and to provide for Charter Oak and Chicho and Lovesky and whatever else we're doing. So we began to sell to other restaurants in the Bay Area, Napa Valley, and mostly San Francisco. So the team there, Zach and Riley and everyone, has talked about gritty and resilient. They've done an incredible job. And Meadowwood's been very supportive. In this time, it's not the most lucrative business in the world, growing carrots in Napa Valley, where historically you're better off growing cab. But they've been very supportive of it. And we look forward to a time when it can kind of go back to what its original intent was, which is to work really hand in glove with a restaurant like the restaurant in Meadowwood, where we are determining, and we control what is planted through Charter Oak. We sit down, we have weekly meetings, and they grow what we work together on it. But what the beauty of the restaurant in Meadowwood and the farm relationship was, it was so specific. We were using the root to the fruit of every plant in different forms, different times of year, to do things, frankly, that owing to where we were and who we were, that no one else could do. Not because we're better, but just because we had built this infrastructure and this ecosystem that gave us the opportunity to create real separation with what we could do and what someone else could do.
And as an educational component, because it's tied to also the Montessori school where your kids go to school.
Yeah. And the educational component for everyone who works in the restaurant. I mean, it was the cultural heart of the entity. That I can't stress enough how important that farm was to the identity of the place and to sort of the education of the people who operated there.
In today's America, what does the American dream mean to you?
Woo!
Teaches me about this question.
I like that question.
What is the American dream? I don't know. My version of the American dream is just happiness, really. And whatever your version of happiness is. For me, it is obviously having an amazing partner in life, and the work that we do together, and the family that we're raising, our 2 girls. Like, I have everything I've ever asked for, and I'm so fortunate in the life that I live. So I think the American dream is really whatever happiness is for you, and however you view that, and whether that's you as an individual and you don't, but for me, I wanted to find a partner, and not necessarily to work with, and that's actually panned out wonderfully. Make a good team. I think it's made us even stronger and bonded us in a way that I don't think anyone will ever quite understand. And I think it's made us better parents too. And I think our kids look at us as a very strong, united front. And me as a strong woman, that's a good example to them. And so that my hopes and dreams have all come true. So everything from here on out is
Gravy.
Yeah.
I think the American dream, in my estimation, and it probably has always been the case, is to live in a place and within a system where you can pursue your ambitions, creative, financial, familial, and achieve those things without stepping on other people to get there. I think the problem with some of our systems now is our systems in America are a little bit predatory in their lack of concern for the normal person. And I think that you have to tread lightly to make sure that the things you're pursuing are not coming at the expense of other people, And that's incumbent upon someone who owns businesses to do the right thing for your team, to pay people properly, that's incredibly consequential. So I think we are part of the American dream and how we pursue things, but I think our political, social, healthcare systems, penal system, electoral system needs to improve so as to ensure that that American dream isn't just available to those who are A, already have the means, or B, are willing to get the means by stepping on other people. It should be a little more just.
What you just said is very interesting, because I think it speaks to something that I also agree is core to the dream, which is, as you're kind of forging your own path, there's also a shared project.
Right.
So it's not a zero-sum game.
Right.
And that culturally, we buy into that.
Right.
There's been a little bit of maybe some more modern twisting where I think we now see it as somewhat of a zero-sum game. Like, if you have, I can't have. If I have, you can't have.
And that has really been a product. That was really, COVID was really delineating point therein, I think, where, or maybe I think maybe more accurately, I was wholly unaware that most people looked at it as a zero-sum game, which is to say, if you're an employer, you're working against me. And I think we were safe within the womb of Meadowwood where everyone's aligned, And I was super naive in thinking that way of looking at the world applied everywhere. And then COVID taught us some of those hard lessons that saying you care isn't enough. Like you really need to give 150% to get back 50%. And I think I think people are justifiably wary living in America and the challenges sometimes that can bring. They're justifiably wary of people in positions of authority. Yeah.
Could you talk about the scholarship that you're offering at the Culinary Institute?
Yes. So it's very near and dear to our heart. We started the Hamlin Thompson Legacy Scholarship in honor of Cameron Thompson, who was one of our young cooks at the restaurant at Meadowwood. He unfortunately, after service one evening, was driving home and got in a car accident. Everyone was obviously extremely impacted by this. We had developed a really amazing relationship with his mother, Tracy, who really was the one that, helped us get this scholarship started, and wanting to do something in honor of him, but also as a way to support minorities in the restaurant industry, but kitchen specifically in more high-end restaurants where maybe resources aren't as available. It's a lot more expensive to stage, to travel, to go to these restaurants, and to get the education to then go back and be a part of it after your schooling. So we were also very fortunate that our first recipient, Devin, came out here afterwards. He actually lived with us for a period of time.
Oh, wow.
For schooling. He's my third child, my son.
That's incredible.
I could get emotional on this one too. So he became a member of.
And he's doing great. I actually talked to him yesterday. He's working in Charleston at this place called Chubby Fish, which is like the hot place in Charleston, and he's crushing it. He's doing super, super, super well. Yeah. So, he's a great
CIA graduate and successful cook, and he's a member of our family. So it's sort of like Cameron meant for that to be, which was really special.
That's incredible. And what does the scholarship offer?
It offers free room and board and tuition to the culinary student, as well as access to a group of mentors within the industry that we've curated to provide sort of assistance in terms of externships, et cetera, but really just sort of counseling through school, through externship period, and into the job market.
Wow.
As well as like job placement assistant, like more or less. It's not some big entity. We run it through the CIA, but
small network that also.
Yeah, and we just stay tethered to the student, get them into the right externship, get them into the right jobs. There's also a stipend that enables them to travel. If they want to go do their externship in Copenhagen, it funds that as well, which is really big.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
You don't often hear about the barriers to kind of
They're
ascending
massive.
the ladder,
They're massive.
even in the kitchen. Yeah.
Well, think about it. Like if you want to go
You got to spend time in France. You got to go to Denmark. Yeah.
You got to buy the
it is
knives.
not
You got to buy the
inexpensive.
books. You have to be able to eat fancy meals. You got to be able to do all these things that
Plus
are.
tuition
You got
on
to
top of it.
choose jobs
Interesting.
based on what they're going to teach you versus being the money it's going to provide, and that is in and of itself a super big luxury.
What are your wife and partner's greatest strengths?
Martina understands people at an intuitive level that I maybe don't. I get really wrapped up in like the idea, the goal, to do like I'm just like I maybe that's just being a dumb man. I'm just like I'm going here, you know. She understands people's intentions and characters and needs in a way far better than I. She understands systems much better than I. Organizational systems, means of communication, what the team needs at a given time, much better than I. So I might be a bit more the engine, like I'm trying to move the thing where it needs to go. She's the one making sure that like she's got the steering wheel and or moving the things out of the way that I would otherwise run over.
I like that metaphor. Keeping the train moving.
Yeah.
Without asking what's next, what are things that you still want to accomplish that you haven't yet?
I'd say there's so much we want to accomplish still. I think that we want to continue to grow our company, to grow Team Kostow. I think we want to continue to refine the things we have. I think we have a really amazing core team of people that we're currently working with, and there's so much more that they can be doing in their careers, and I want them to come along for the ride with us and grow alongside us. So I guess there's a lot more for us in the future, and there's going to be more amazing restaurants and fun projects and things that we're really going to dive into, and what those are. You just have to wait and see.
Yeah, have to wait and see. We've been blessed in the past to have international projects. We were the first really American chef to open in mainland China, which we did in August of 19 with Ensu.
I was in Shenzhen.
In Shenzhen, yeah. Very successful, as successful as a restaurant can be during COVID, So, that project kind of ran its course after 5 years, which was a blessing that it lasted as long as it did, again, during a global pandemic that began in China. We also helped open Soho House Mexico City, more of in a consulting capacity. We like to do more international projects because I think it affords us the opportunity to travel. I think it's a great storefront for the Napa Valley.
Yep.
And for the wines of the Napa Valley and the people of the Napa Valley, I think that's really a mutual benefit. I think that's important. I think for us to do more things in cities, maybe a project in San Francisco where we can tether these things together, I think is something we're very much looking forward to doing at some point, and growing in a way that affords more opportunities for the people who work with us and to grow that core team so as to provide this foundation. So hopefully, again, we can become the leaders that we want to be.
One more question, then a couple. I loved your answer about the American dream. For your daughters, what do you think their American dream will look like?
Ooh. Aspirational American dream for my daughters, I guess, is for them, and I already see this within them, is to be really strong, independent women. I think it took me a long time to get to that point in my life. I think, I had to go through a lot of different things and my own version of my challenges to get where I am today. But I think the version of me that they're seeing, I would like them to even take that further. And I already see that in them at 9 and 12. They are already very strong or very opinionated. So for them to be able to...
Too opinionated.
But in a good way. I mean, I want them to be empowered. I want them to know that they can do anything that they want to do. And I want them to dream and dream big. And I want them to accomplish those dreams. But no, to accomplish those dreams, they have to work screaming hard to get there. And that's what we've done. And I think that if you can instill those things in them, yeah, it's the world is their oyster. They can do anything they want to do. And that would be my hope for them.
Yep. And you have to answer immediately. What's your favorite vegetable?
White kohlrabi.
White kohlrabi.
White kohlrabi.
Yeah. And it's been a really tough day at the office, and you come home from work. What's the comfort food meal that you want to eat?
Ocho Blanco.
Yeah. Can I drink?
Yeah, absolutely. That's part of it.
Yeah, I would say after a hard day, I want a cold martini and a full martini and a Caesar salad.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I can sit there and I'd be perfectly happy.
I will say most days are hard days, and I don't mean that. I don't mean that
So
as like.
most days are martini days.
So I drink a martini and eat a Caesar salad every day.
I don't mean like a woe is me, but it's rare that we go home. We're like, that was easy today. Yeah, nailed that. Yeah.
I think that's what makes our partnership so great, though, is that, yeah, we should probably leave more of work at work. But I think because, again, it's such a big part of who we are as people and our identity and what we're so passionate about, to have a partner you work with and then go home and be able to almost like decompress from the day and be able to talk through things.
I'm just laughing.
Are you laughing?
Well, you'd be like trying to go to sleep and be like, hey, what do you think about this? I'm like, no.
I have this great idea. Yeah, but it's sort of, I think it's what makes us stronger, and has it just like totally laughed me out of We are very fortunate.
You guys look like you're having fun while you're doing this, though.
That's the crazy shit.
right?
That's the crazy thing is we enjoy it. It's like insane. Like it's rare. It never occurs that I'm not excited to go to work in the morning.
Yeah,
That's insane.
that's really great.
Yeah. Come in, you get punched in the mouth a couple times, like, but every day you're like, yeah.
That's why we're still here.
Yeah.
And that's why we're still pushing.
Yep.
You know, we nothing can bring us down. They're just people are gonna have to just deal with what we
Yeah.
put out into the world, and
There we go.
hopefully they continue to enjoy it
Yep.
because we're not going anywhere.
Well, thank you, guys.